Can you hear me right now?
Yeah,
It makes it lag. What are you doing?
we're live. Does it make it lag? I don't know. We're going to test this and see. I'm just going to slowly turn it down. Do you want to turn off the screen there?
What?
Turn off the overlay. There we go, so you can see us. We're going to test this intro music.
We already know.
We already know? I don't know. I don't know if it's StreamYard or not, but it doesn't matter. I'm just going to play it a little bit and fade it out. Hey, welcome back. Or let's not even say welcome back this time. So welcome to the Draw or Die podcast, where we cover all kinds of topics that are relevant to that artist's life. The Draw or Die Club is out there to encourage artists to stay motivated and stay drawing in a world that, can be kind of tough out there for artists. So we want to be encouraging each other. I always say we're all in this together. And tonight we're going to cover a bunch of topics. We're going to get into the AI art topic again, because there's been some breaking news this week. We're going to talk about craft fairs. We've got some tips for artists that are setting up at shows, whether it's a Comic-Con or a local craft fair. We're going to talk about some legal stuff that's going on, how Warner Brothers is suing a creator for a Batman thing. We'll get into that. And then we're also going to cover some Supreme Court action that Supreme Court might be coming for your artist rights now. So we'll that's a little teaser. We'll get into that. I might want to touch base on the Creators Bill of Rights too, a little bit about that. Maybe we'll talk about that more next week. But just kicking it off, I just got off of probably 7 days in a row off from my day job. So it was really nice that we got to kind of go out and explore some art fairs. And we usually go to Handmade Arcade in Pittsburgh, which is really awesome. There's a lot of local artists and regional artists there doing all kinds of handmade art. We also went to, what's the other place we went to?
I think it's not Mountain Craft Days. It was Christmas on the Mountain, I think.
Yeah, little Christmas on the Mountain in Bear Rocks, right? Yeah. So we're really cool to kind of just go out and see some of the crafters and people there. And just to kick this conversation off about setting up at shows and maybe some tips for this would be, we go into this little craft. I can't really describe. I'm going to try to describe it. It's a mountain lodge looking place, kind of a very rural area in Southwest.
It's a one-day show.
It's a little one-day.
Just a one-day show.
One-day holiday craft show. Cute, old ladies, middle-aged ladies, all different types of age people selling things. There's a guy selling maple candies and syrup and stuff like that. And one thing that caught our eye was a girl. I'm not going to call her out or, say her name because I don't want to embarrass her or anything like that. Really wonderful artwork. And the thing that really stood out to us was pet portraits. So, and I'm not going to, I don't think anyone's listening though, but I thought, well, this might make a good gift. So we went up and started talking to her, and I'm like, yeah, I'd like to buy one. and she's like, sure, just go ahead and Instagram me or DM me or something. I was like ready. I had the money ready to pay her, and it was really cheap. Her artwork was like 20, let's just say, I don't know what the smaller prices were. I don't remember, Alicia, but
the smallest one was $15.
$15.
But I feel like the smaller ones are harder because you got to get all that detail in that, like sketch. They're a little bit bigger than sketch card size. Definitely underselling herself.
Yeah. But I like the medium size pet portrait, and I think it was $25. And so I'm standing there listening to her talking to, I think, another customer or a neighbor or something. And I'm like, yeah, I'd like to order one of these. And I showed her the picture, and she, oh, this will be great. Hey, can you have it in time for Christmas? I think Yeah, of course. But there was no transaction that took place at that show, and we actually had to leave that show and get some cash. And we were like, what do we do? Like, how do I remember to I put it in my little notes like, hey, make sure I order this off of Instagram. But then we went and had breakfast. We were thinking about it, and I'm like, I'm definitely going to order something from this woman because I said I would. But we were discussing it over breakfast, and we're like, she should have taken the money.
Take the money.
Right
Always take
there.
the money.
Right? And explain the clientele that goes to those types of little shows.
Yeah, I don't think that the grandmas that I saw walking around are going to DM her on Instagram. And I mean, we could have it all wrong. It could be that by design. Maybe she doesn't want to work with technologically challenged people. Maybe
Yeah.
this is uh maybe this is not a test, but like I only want to
Yeah.
deal with people that can navigate the internet. But I would have taken the money.
Yeah, I mean, she definitely stood out at this craft show because it was more like comic book science fiction art. But then there were these pet portraits, and I think a lot of older people were like, "Am I old?" Because I was like, "That's cool." Like, but no, I mean, I think there were a lot of older ladies that were like, "Oh, my kitty," like that kind of thing. They're not PayPal. I really, based on our experience at shows, they're not very tech savvy as far as like Venmo or PayPal or something. Maybe PayPal. But my point was like, hey, I'm there. I'm a customer. You're at a 1-day show. I'm willing to pay you, and just get somehow collect that money, cash, credit card reader, whatever you have to do, because the money's right there in front of you, and you just collect it. Because a lot of I could have, if I would have been anyone else, I would have had breakfast and been like, you know what? Nah, I don't know. And another thing was the price. So, it was really good art, I thought. And I just had to say it to her was, hey, you should raise your prices. And then her neighbor, the neighbor booth lady, was like, I tell her that all the time, blah, 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 blah. Like this lady just like cut in and like totally like wiped out the conversation, tried to talk me into a smaller piece. And that gets into something else we talk about comic book shows. When you do comic shows and you're talking to your neighbor too much, and there's clients, or there's not clients, but customers, right in front of your table that you're kind of.
I don't think it's the neighbors that are ever, if it's a neighbor, I think usually because we ask to be set next to certain people
Yeah.
that get it, but occasionally someone will come from like across the room and chat you up for sometimes an hour, and I just always wonder what's going on at their table because I don't
Right.
think they're making money while they're talking to you, and those convention tables aren't cheap. Like I don't know.
Yeah, maybe for the Bear Rocks art show, it's okay. It might be free table or something, but I mean, I want to encourage. I did tip her. I said, hey, I'm giving you, double the money because it's like that's ridiculous. You should definitely charge more. So hopefully it encourages her because, like, I think it gets down to the fact that especially when you live in small towns or small town rural areas, like you got the double the problem where people don't really value the art and you don't value the art yourself. So you put a really low price tag on what you're doing. And I'm sure that those portraits are, I'm going to say, taking her 3 or 4 hours. Easy. Maybe 2 hours if she's fast. So $25, she could make more working at McDonald's right now or the gas station. So,
And just because she loves it doesn't mean that she should do it for next to free.
yeah.
Because she has her supplies and her pencils and her paper, and taking the
Right.
time away from her personal projects, which would be way more fulfilling than drawing someone's cat.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I won't get into the personal. I'm not going to link to her or anything like that because I don't want to embarrass her. Unless if she hears this for by any chance, and she wants to come on the show and talk to us about her uh, ventures, we would definitely love to talk to artists like that too in the future. So, but yeah, if you're out there, value your art. You're at a show to make money, not to make friends. And it's Christmas time. It was like the first weekend of Christmas shopping. That's what we were out there doing, spending money like crazy that we didn't have. And yeah, I just want to encourage people to just think about that. And if it's your first or second show or something like that, but it looks like she had a decent setup. Like she knew what she was doing. Like she's probably done a couple shows before. So, and you know what? The thing that made me that I noted this down to talk about this today was when I said, "Hey, you should raise your prices." She goes, "I know, everybody's telling me that," is what she said. And then her neighbor said, "Yeah, I tell her that all the time." And I'm like, if the market, so the market on the other end of the table out there, the market's telling you should raise your prices, and you're not raising your prices just because you don't value, or you're like, no, I don't want people to think, or maybe you don't have confidence in your own art. But if the market's telling you to raise your prices, you should just raise your prices. All right.
Maybe she didn't have time to make a new sign. Like maybe next show.
You're very kind. You're a kind person, Alicia. So then we moved on to, I don't know, it wasn't the same day, but it was the next day. Handmade Arcade. It's one of our favorite shows in Pittsburgh.
It's juried. And part of their jurying process is that you have to make what you sell. There are no MLMs. There are no sourced products. It's all handmade stuff. Until now. Until this year.
Yeah. So we're walking around. We see it. We usually buy a couple pieces like prints and stuff. We're out of room. I don't know, if you can tell, we're out of room to hang these prints. But we usually see a couple artists that we buy from every year, let's say. And I'm walking around and I get to this one booth and I stopped dead in my tracks because I knew what it was. I just kind of knew this was not anything handmade.
No.
This was Mid-Journey art. It was AI art.
Mid-Journey. Mid-Journey as soon as you see it.
Yeah, Mid-Journey, the AI art is way different than the other AI art. I can't explain it. It's just more, it just has a unique style to it. More like, I just say science fiction-y looking stuff, concept art looking thing. Anyways, I get to talking to the guy because I'm like, hey, this is really interesting. I knew it wasn't his stuff, but just played along. He immediately said, "Oh yeah, this is all AI," and I'm like, "Oh, go figure," And I mean, I already kind of, like I said, I knew that, but I wanted to strike it up with him and say like, "Hey," and I noticed that the signatures on the art before he even said it, he signs his name and Mid-Journey on the art, and it was, I mean, his booth setup was very nice, and it was filled with this stuff. And he's like, yeah, I spend, something I'm hearing a lot of from AI artists is that they're, I spend hours working on these things. And I'm like, okay, cool. Maybe, I'm not saying you don't. But he was open to, and I said, you know what? We're talking about this on the podcast a lot lately. This is a hot topic. The AI art, like, how does this, we're trying to figure out how this works. We've heard a lot of rumors. We've heard a lot of things, and he goes, oh yeah, it's a very controversial thing. But then he tells me that he's actually on some volunteer, I don't know what it was, committee of some kind with Mid-Journey, the company. And I was like, really? Well, then I thought maybe we should have somebody from him. So I asked him, I was like, hey, would you ever want to come on the podcast to talk to artists about this? And Magical says Mid-Journey and JSON as a signature, never. By the way, I did a poll here on the YouTube channel community tab that said, what do you think about AI art? Is it okay? Is it going to replace us, or kill it with fire? And the majority of people voted kill it with fire. So that's funny. anyways, I was pretty open to like, hey, I'm just curious. I like to have conversations with different artists and people, and we were chatting it up. And then Alicia walked away. Like I'm like, wait, where did Alicia go? Alicia had had enough of this, talk. And I caught up with her and I'm like, hey, look, should we have him on the show? And she's like, no. And to explain why, because I think your reasoning was very good after you said, and I was like, oh, you're right.
So his prices were pretty low. And that kind of was the first thing that I was like, oh, like, did you really spend hours on these iterations and then price them this low? But I mean, for a decent sized print, I think it was $15 to $25. But if I have a certain amount of money that I'm looking to spend today, and I spend it at that booth, I'm not going to spend it at one of the booths for the actually handmade thing. And I don't like that. And I know that probably a fair amount of the people walking around might also avoid it because they know what it is. But some people might not know what it is. And I don't know if he's telling everyone what it is. And I feel like this is the time of year that artists can kind of make it work. And those tables at shows, I don't know how much Handmade Arcade chooses to sell their booths for, but I'm guessing between, I don't know, $300 and $700, probably.
Yeah. I don't know what the price is, but I think it's hard to get into that show. What I've heard.
Mm-hmm.
So it's
but
a little.
I feel like if someone's spending their money at his booth, they might not be spending that money at someone else's booth, and I don't like that. And then the thing I really didn't like, and respectfully, I didn't take a picture of it. A lot of it, almost all of it, looked like Midjourney, but there were a few pieces that looked like a sketch. It was like a cutesy sketch, like I think it was a fox, and like another animal type sketch, and that looked like a person did it. And I think the ones that look really trippy, like Midjourney art, but there is the capability for someone to make these sketches. It looked like a sketch, and I had not seen it do that before, and I really didn't like that.
Yeah, I saw another artist on Instagram actually say another thing that, besides that AI really can't figure out hands. We're going to get into that in a minute. Again, it's just something that it's very clear that it's not really good at cartooning, that it's not a really good cartoon styles, and it can't keep replicating the styles yet. So that's interesting. And like, I don't know if you don't have the sheet or anything, Alicia, but well, we'll get into it. Like how these apps work and how you can like choose the artist's name, and some of the artists are actually alive. Like, hey, make it look like this artist's stuff, and like how that works. And I think that kind of, we're already kind of talking about the AI stuff. So let's get into the update on what happened last week, shortly after the show, was that Clip Studio Paint, which we talked about last episode, who had said they were going to have the AI art background generator. There was an uproar with the art community, and they said, we don't want that. And so they reversed it, and they said, no, we're not going to do it. And that was just for background AI generated art. And so we were, this was a topic of the week between Alicia and I. Every time we would like look at the different news and stuff that was coming out, we started to hear about stable diffusion and some of the art things. And I'm going to go ahead and share my screen now, because you may have seen all over everywhere. Let me go to there we go. You've probably seen some artwork, selfies all over the internet with Lensa, the app that makes you look like, there's what's his face, right? Steve Aoki. So you might have seen this. Everybody's using it. It's the hot thing to do. But we saw an article that said that it's using this thing called stable diffusion method, which essentially is basically, there's two really crazy things here. Number one, it's scanning the internet for galleries of artists. And I guess this app, is it this app, Alicia, that says like you could pick an artist that you want to mimic their style?
So I'm not sure if it's this app, but they were, I think it was in a Q&A or a FAQ, and they were saying, if your prompts aren't rendering correctly, add in the style of, and then an artist's name. And there were something like, I scrolled through a list of like 500 artists' names. And I should have done some more digging, but I don't think they were all necessarily not working. So, if I wanted to hire I don't know, Thomas Kincaid was on that list.
Oh,
If I was enamored with his work, I don't have to buy his prints anymore. I could just say, give me a lighthouse and a beach scene in the style of Thomas Kincaid, and it will try to mimic him.
Yeah.
And
to that point, look, you can even see in some of them the signatures of the real artists are mangled into the final drawings.
Now, the argument of the tech bros that are in there trolling it up is that AI has learned that as an artist, it should sign its work. So this is its attempt to sign its work. And I think that's complete and utter not true. That is not true.
That looks like Batman to me. Batman made that. All right. Yeah, this really made me cringe this week because there's a lot of outrage and stuff, and I'm not being like that. I'm just kind of trying to learn as we go, as this develops, and it's developing super quick.
Well, that comment that you have up right now is hilarious to me because it says AI knows. Scroll down a little bit.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. It tries to recreate its own signature, yet it can't. It doesn't know that hands should have 5 fingers. So a signature is such a more complex concept than 5 fingers on a hand. But yeah, sure, it's learning to sign its work. Sure, of course. Of course, that's what that is.
Yeah, and I guess now, celebrities, everybody thought this was really cute. Like, oh, there's the little app to use, but look at this. And now like people like Casey, like a lot of famous people are like, uh-oh, my images, because when you look at the terms of service, and this article here, I've actually got Lensa's, full. I'm not going to go through this. Look at this terms of service. It's crazy. But basically, guys, it's saying that if you upload your face to this, you're giving it the rights to you. Where is it here? Sorry. You're allowing it forever to own whatever you're uploading to the app. So
what if I upload your face?
Well, this terms of service actually says, we trust you, Alicia. Everything you're uploading, we trust that you have rights to it, right? That's kind of how these things work. So they were like, we're told we trusted you, Alicia. So if you upload a picture of DJ as a gift or something, well, so
womp womp. DJ doesn't own his face anymore.
And they say that they're doing it so that they can, it's helping their AI learn about faces and things. So now your face might be on a children's book whenever some, writer goes like, oh, I want a detailed scene of a doo, and then suddenly you're in a science fiction and you're like, why is my face in this freaking book? Like, there's nothing you can do about it. I mean, the odds of that happening are pretty slim, but people should just be aware. I think people should be aware of this. Funny thing also to this was this week, ChatGPT showed up. So if you don't know what ChatGPT, so like, hey, if you're an artist, beware, the robots are coming for you. Well, the writers, this ChatGPT can literally write out short articles, and they're really good. Actually, they're really, really good. And what I did earlier today, and I'm going to do it here live, is I actually decided to ask AI why AI can't draw hands. So I'm going to do that right now. I'm going to do it again. Please tell me why AI cannot draw hands. Specifically, you have to say things like that. Specifically, Midjourney. Whoop. Midjourney, Lensa. No, come on, Lensa, and Dolly. Okay. Now these AIs are friends. Just keep that in mind. They all know each other. Actually, Dolly is made by the same company here. So I'm going to hit go, and then we're going to watch it in real time. Artificial intelligence is a broad term that refers to any machine. However, AI systems are not capable of creating art. Okay. Well, the one that I had earlier was actually way better, and I didn't copy it. But it said that the reason that it couldn't draw hands was because of the complexity of hands and their shapes and their movements and their forms. That it was too many.
How many bones there are in the human hand, and
Yeah.
how many possible hand configurations there were.
Yeah, there we go. Lack
Yeah,
of
there we
human
go.
anatomy, muscles and bones. Right. So you can actually go to this Chat GPT and actually ask it things, or you could say like, write me a content schedule for a busy artist, and it says like 9 a.m. post this. It's just like this crazy thing. So yeah, all this week in the content world, back in my day job land, they're like, this is over on LinkedIn, it's like a bunch of marketers are like, oh my God, this is gonna replace copywriters and article writers and all this stuff, because like they're not bad articles, like, but they're doing the same thing. They're copying tidbits that they're capturing from other places. So and it's highly adaptable. Anyways, scary times we're living in, where the writers and artists are going to be totally obsolete soon. No, we're not going to be obsolete. The good news is that I think the good news is that I still feel like, there's something to being human and having a human experience, and we're the only ones that kind of know that experience. So we're going to live and die, and that's, I feel good about that. I like the idea. Like when I was sitting down to draw this morning before work, I was like, you know what? I don't care that this takes me hours to draw this, and a computer might be able to try to replicate it in a milliseconds. To me, it's still just the feeling I have personally when I draw. That's what's important to me. And that's kind of what the Draw or Die Club is all about too. So, and by the way, you can join the Draw or Die Club if you don't know what that is. Weekly newsletter. Make sure you're subscribed to this channel. There will be a link down in the bio of, or link, not in the bio, link in the description of this video. And we also have some merch available at drawordie.co. So we have hats. We got some t-shirts and hoodies. We figured out some of the hoodie issues. So we figured out the tax thing last week. For a little business update was, yes, we were saying that we weren't making as much off the hoodies, but I think Alicia kind of figured that part out with the taxes, right?
Yeah, I had to enable some settings, but
yeah, okay,
we're all good now.
We'll leave it at that. I don't want to get too far into the weeds of that. Yeah, so we talked about Lensa. We talked about AI. Next up, this was a story that I try not to look at the comic book news too much, to be honest with you, because I don't know. I just kind of got out of comic books a little bit. I still love drawing comics, but I got out of the comic book news. And I saw this week that I'm going to go ahead and share this again. Wait, how do I do that? There we go. There's an artist that's being sued by Warner Brothers for the new Batman movie that had come out. And I guess he had written the script for it. He's an artist, but he wrote a script, solicited it in, and that was 10 years ago. So then the movie came out. I'm just paraphrasing here from what I gathered. I didn't look too far into this, because there's definitely, just like there's the AI art bros, there's a whole side of comic book bros that are like, this guy's a grifter and all this stuff. But Chris Wozniak's not a drifter. He's a published artist for Marvel and DC, and he was pretty decently known. I think not the most famous guy, but definitely a published artist, and was a working cartoonist for DC Comics. And so I guess this was the tweet that said like Warner Brothers isn't even denying that they used his Batman story. They're saying that it was unauthorized and it was SOP for freelancers. And he's saying though he's saying that it was standard practice for freelancers to be able to submit their stories to DC editors. But when you get into the legalese of Warner Brothers, they're like, no, this was an unsolicited script. We never asked for it, so too bad, sucker. And and now they're suing him to kind of shut him down. And that's called hashtag BatmanGate. If you want to go look, and he's at BatmanGate on Twitter. And there's a lot of comments in here that are like, how many people are you suing and things like that. And a lot of times, and I'm not going to be anti-Hollywood here or anti-comic book industry or anything like that. It's just a cutthroat business. You got to be careful of the contracts you sign. Even if you think there's a standard of practice, you might want to be sure, because people's word is as only good as not much anymore, right? A handshaking word is not great. You got to really look at your contracts. If the company has a thing on their website that says, do not send unsolicited things, it doesn't matter that your editor or someone told you, yeah, just send me your ideas, guy. You trusted him, and that's wrong. Now, he is actually, the reason I'm bringing this up is, and I really don't think anyone's going to help him, which is sad. He's saying everyone knows this is the standard of practice for Warner Brothers, right, guys? Right? My writer friends out there, please, somebody back me up and tell me, because if he has a couple other creators that could come out and say, yeah, this was a standard of practice, it'll help his case. And he's not looking for millions and millions of dollars. Actually, he's the one being sued. They're suing him to shut him down. He's just asking for what's fair for the other writers that got credited in the movie. He just wants similar pay that they got, because they did just use his full concept for that movie. I fell asleep during that movie, to be honest. We started watching it and I fell asleep during the new Batman movie. It wasn't for me. And I know some artists. I know writers. I know some writers. So I know what he's saying is true, but I can't say the names of the writers. But I know what he's saying is true, because I know these writers, and I know that they've told me that they've solicited scripts and ideas and pitched things, and some of them are even openly on Facebook saying this. Oh, I pitched a new thing today. Now, whether behind the scenes, I don't know the details of that. I don't know how that works. That's between them and their editors or whomever their contact is. But Chris here said that he was actually going to try to have them call Jim Lee to the stand. This will probably never go to trial or anything like that. This is just to shut an artist down. And that's just kind of how it goes. It's a little sad, but there's two sides. You have to definitely be careful. Again, just be careful. Even if you think something is a certain way. And, Alicia will tell you that I'm the king of that. I just be like, of course it's this way. I can just have my contracts however I want. And she's like, DJ, it's not. Look what your contract says. And I'm like, yeah, but And
yeah,
she's
but
like, no.
When you try to get the contracts worked in a way that won't screw you over, they accuse you, or me rather, of thinking that I'm Mark Millar. Yeah. Who do you think you are, wanting a fair shake?
Right. Yeah, so I think he launched his own defense fund against Warner Brothers. I'm not going to link to it. I'm just showing it. He's raised about $2,000 of the $20,000 he needs to defend himself. He's going to get crushed. This machine is going to crush this dude.
So, let me ask, when does the comic book legal defense fund get involved?
That's a good question. I mean, someone could maybe ask Jim McLaughlin that on Twitter. I think he's running the comic book legal defense. No, he doesn't. He runs the Hero Initiative. I'm sorry. Comic book legal defense
Is
fund
that
is
only
totally.
when someone infringes on your published work?
No, because Comic Book Legal Defense Fund defended King Velveeta, I think. I'm almost positive. I might be getting this wrong. I'm just thinking off the top of my head here. But remember, King Velveeta was the street artist guy, comic guy, and he got sued by Kraft Foods and he lost and he had to change his name and to like King Cheese or something like that. And there's a really old VCR tape documentary about that guy that I have somewhere. And it was really good. But they were doing the same thing. They were doing way more to that guy. Totally putting the screws to that dude. Really sad. But also that's going to transition really well into this parody thing that we're going to talk about here in a second too, I think. Because King Velveeta was like, oh, it's a parody, it's a joke. And clearly it was a joke. His artwork was extra cheesy and stuff like that. But it was very adult too at times. So it's problematic. Hey, I did see that Jim Valentino gave him $500. Jim Valentino. There's a lot of people that are, I can't say that they're anti-corporate comics per se. Just a lot of people have worked for corporate comics and they know how this goes. So I think a lot of people can, feel for it. Like, don't, your ideas might. Now that I'm thinking about it, I think there was a guy, Marcel from Pittsburgh. Didn't he say that DC took he sent one of his scripts in for like DC Red Sun or something like that, where Superman was a Soviet, and like ideas are kind of a dime a dozen. You just never know. If you're sending your script in unsolicited, it might land on someone's desk and it might get, sent to another freelancer. Hey, we got an idea. Go ahead and write this up. Or it's going to go to Warner Brothers or screenwriters or something like that. You just never know. It's a giant machine. It's not like your buddy down the street. And I guess the only other point, yeah, go ahead.
They take from published work though too, and I think you can never really tell where an idea came from if you've ever. I know you and I have talked about the idea stream before, and two people having near identical ideas at nearly the same time. It happens, but I think that one of your Hero by Night concepts ended up being very similar to something that DC put out later. And then I know that another writer friend of ours had a book that was out for a long time, and then a popular TV show on streaming service seemed to have done that pretty exactly. Right. It happens so often.
Yeah, that was Black Mirror, right? Black Mirror ripping off Dirk Manning stuff. Yeah. I think we're able to say that. I think that's fine to say. Yeah, this is pretty commonplace. The more we start thinking about it, the more this actually happens. Or you see something and you go, hey, wait a minute. Like, we just had something similar. Now that I'm thinking about it, we just had something similar happen with Godchild.
We did. Now it's a Fox cartoon. Is like our concept plus about 16 years. So yeah, pretty much exactly what would have happened 16 years on from our book. So yeah,
like a sequel, which is really funny because the people that we were talking to in Hollywood at the time were asking us questions like, what's next?
What happens? Can you write up like the next 4 concepts for this?
Can you write up the history of this thing in the future? And we're like, no, we're not doing that. For free, like for $10 or something. No.
Yeah. Oh no, I think it was $500. Exclusive rights for $500.
Yeah, like a.
And then when I said no, is when they accused me of thinking I was Frank Miller. Frank Miller.
Yeah. Yeah, this is why, by the way, when people go like, well, DJ, why aren't you in the comic game anymore? I love comic books. I love to draw comics, and I just don't like the business of this stuff. I just don't like that. I don't like anything about it. I don't like anything about this happening to this guy. But I also I'm able to see the big business. I work for a big business, and I'm able to see the big business side of things where I go like, yeah, guys, you gotta you got to watch your, you can't just go off I learned this the hard way. And I also like to try, I sometimes you just think as a creative, you're like, oh, this will be easy. Let's just do a contest. Let's just have a contest where we give away stuff. No, you got to be careful. You have to have that little byline that says, no purchase necessary. You can send a postcard in. Because if you don't, you could get sued for like $30,000 and win. There's like there's people out there that do that. So you got to be very careful.
There are people
On
that is their how they
full-time.
make a living. They just look for people
Oh,
that did not follow contest
protocol.
law.
Yeah, protocol.
And they go, it'll be cheaper for them to pay us than it will be for them to defend it. So they will pay us. And that's all they do. That's how they do. That's how they live. That's their job.
Yeah, I think to close out that topic, again, I kind of go back to a couple years ago. Well, it's more than a couple years ago now. Time's dragging on. Robert Kirkman had come out with sort of like a weird manifesto or writing an article somewhere on CBR, Comic Book Resources, where he said, like, creators out there that are working for Marvel and DC, get out, make your own stuff, come to Image, publish your own stuff, do a webcomic, put out new IP, own your stuff, own everything that you're doing. And actually, before we get into the other thing, this got me thinking about the Creator Bill of Rights, and not many people know about it anymore or talk about it. Do you know about it, Alicia? No. I never talked to you about it either. Way back in 1980, I don't know what year was it here. I'm gonna look. 1988, November 1988. Kevin Eastman, Peter Laird, the Ninja Turtle Bros, and Dave Sim, Scott McCloud, a whole host of people got together, creators, comic book creators, and they got together and said, creators need a Bill of Rights. And if you look this up, the actual Bill of Rights down here that they wrote were these 12 items. We could talk about this maybe more in depth in another. I don't want to go through every one, but it's like, the right to own your own stuff, the right to first refusal and approval, all these things. And this was like a real like, they made a big deal of this, but yet it kind of got poo-pooed when you read about this topic. It kind of got poo-pooed around the thing. I mean, Will Eisner said, yeah, that's really great, guys, but it's kind of pie in the sky idea. Like, no one really cares about what you guys have written. But the signatures on there, Larry Marder, he's one of the founders of Image Comics, Steve Bissett, Gerhard. Hey, look, we know that guy, Gerhard.
Yeah. Such a nice dude.
Mirage Studios, that's the Ninja Turtle Bros. I'm just going to call it the Ninja Turtle Bros. Scott McCloud, which, hey, Scott McCloud, he was ahead of his game with all this stuff. And Dave Sim, which is, he kind of has Dave Sim, wonderful artist, but just a little out there now. He's got some really strong opinions, misogynist dude. Rick Vetch. And yeah, so these were like pretty big names in 1988. So it makes me proud now that I'm kind of over in the YouTube side. I deal with a lot of YouTube creators and things like that. And a lot of creators now are still trying to figure out, like, the people that call themselves creators. I'm starting to think, like, do YouTubers and creators need a Bill of Rights that's like an all-encompassing Bill of Rights for creators? And that's exciting. And it makes me proud that comic book artists or cartoonists were figuring this out in the 80s, just like we did with webcomics in the 90s. We were trying to figure out monetization and micropayments. And, like, I don't know. I still think that there's that innovation point that's exciting to me, where I feel like maybe it's because artists have comic book artists have a lot of time on their hands when they're drawing, and they could just sit around and be like, I think this is how we change the world, guys. Let's go talk about that over some coffee or something. So maybe we'll talk more about the Bill of Rights. I want to learn a little bit more about it. Maybe even get someone on. I keep saying that, but wouldn't it be a trip to have like Scott McCloud come on this podcast and talk, just give us a little history about that? Or, I know some other people maybe I could have on about it, but it's an interesting concept. And I think now it might be more relevant than ever. In the 80s, when there was no internet, they were just protecting themselves from Diamond and publishers and things like this, where a company can come and crush you. One quick story that I'll say before we move on is that you might not know this, but Marvel and DC Comics co-own the trademark superhero, and you can't use it in a title of your comic book, your games, your toys, your whatever you want. If you do that, if you put superhero in the title of anything that's comic related, you're going to get a cease and desist letter where they will come after you and crush you down. We know this because we have a friend, Dan Taylor, who had Superhero Happy Hour was his comic book, and it was taking off. It was at a point where it was like, that's a cool sounding name. It's about superheroes in a bar. Our friend Chris Faison drew that. Dan wrote it, and they came crushing after Dan, and Dan had to fold. Dan was like, I can't afford to fight this. I can't take these people on. So he changed the name to Hero Happy Hour. My advice to him behind the scenes was like, fight it. They'd have to come to my house and drag me out, and they'd have to find me or something. I would be all over there and they'd have to shut me down, right? Not the good move. So Dan, when you're fighting against that, it's just a money pit. They're going to shut you down because for whatever reason, they have to protect their copyright too. Or their trademark. They have to protect it. So it might not have even been anything personal. It's just like, oh, there's someone out there that's creating buzz in comics with the name superhero. If we don't send this dude a cease and desist, at least, then we give it up. But isn't it funny that Marvel and DC co-own that? That's weird. Does anyone think that's weird? Anyways. All right, let's talk about the Supreme Court and how they're going to come for your parody law rights as artists. Alicia, I'll let you kick this off since you brought this to my attention, and I think it's really fascinating.
So,
oh shit!
I think probably less now that we're not doing shows, but while we were doing shows, everyone kind of appropriates to a certain degree, and it's either fan art or they say, oh, this is parody. This is parody. This falls under parody. And I wondered for a long time now, like how far does that go? So I noticed a news article. There's the Supreme Court is actually taking up the case, Jack Daniels versus this dog toy company who made a parody. Obviously, that is not Jack Daniels. That is a squeaky toy called Bad Spaniels, and it's a poop joke, which I think is probably why Jack Daniels is so upset. It's Bad Spaniels, the old number 2 on your Tennessee carpet. And this has been going on for 8 years. Finally wound its way all the way up to the Supreme Court. And I found this stellar review of Trademark and how it applies to parody by the Santa Clara Law Review. And based on the different cases in there, I think Jack Daniels has a pretty good shot, because if you do something that can infringe upon the goodwill built by the brand and prove that it has tarnished their mark, in this case, it's the shape of their bottle, the style of their label, and if they can show that it tarnishes the goodwill or that the consumer base would think this is actually put out by Jack Daniels, then it is no longer parody, and they'll have to pay damages. So it'll be interesting to see. And I think from an artist's perspective, I hear a lot of people saying like, oh, it's a mashup, oh, it's a parody, and not really giving any thought to dilution of brand, or if it's in poor taste, if the brand could somehow claim that it damaged them in some way. And these brands have all the money and artists are generally not in a position to defend themselves against an international company. So I think this is one to watch. Um, Not that they're gonna come after all of you, but I'm interested in how this goes.
When does this go down? When did the Supreme Court took up the case?
They did. It's on their docket. I couldn't find when. And I think even if you do find when, there's always so many delays and schedule changes and things that get bumped ahead. So I'm sure it'll make news when it happens. But in the meantime, that link to the Santa Clara Law Review, if you wanted to read about parody cases and trademark rulings and know, where you stand on things, it's a really good document, and I think we'll link it in the description.
Yeah, I mean, you might not think these are the most exciting topics to think about, the legal things that we've discussed tonight, but it's good to know, even if you're just doing this as a hobby or having fun with it and you're thinking about the business side. These are things that you should be aware of out there when you're like getting away with, mashup art at conventions and things like that. I get it, but you got to be careful. What's this say? You would think Kaiser's illustration says, you would think they would like that and would increase sales, like the joke gifts and stuff like that. Maybe you would think
maybe
that
if it wasn't a poop joke, I think they'd have a better sense of humor about it.
Yeah, I'm curious to see how this one goes, because didn't you say somebody lost?
Yeah, so this same company that makes this dog toy lost a case to Budweiser. It was called
so about Spuds McKenzie?
No, it was another poop joke. I think it was like a I don't know why they're obsessed with the dog poop jokes. But they had lost a case to Budweiser, and the way that Budweiser won was they surveyed their customer base, and they said, would you think that this product was an authorized piece of merchandise from Budweiser? And overwhelmingly, their customer base said, of course. So they were able to prove the case that this had damaged their brand because their consumer base could not distinguish it from their genuine products. I think that's probably because Budweiser at the time was advertising with frogs and dogs and all kinds of silly stuff. So a dog poop picker-upper product honestly didn't seem outside of the realm of possibility for Budweiser, which is funny because they're a beer brand, but they did win.
Yeah, it's very interesting. I want to take a real quick look here near the end of the podcast, but want to take a look at the some of the draw or die. When you hashtag draw or die club, hashtag draw or die club on Instagram or anywhere really. We're just going to take a look at Instagram because it's easy to do here on the podcast, but just kind of look through some of the most recent drawings. Some people are doing some self-portraits there. And the I got the Clyde Perkins. The the daily prompt the other day was a Yeti finishes decorating.
We have that statue in our garden, I think.
I know. So these prompts are intense, but I just happened to find this holiday Yeti sculpture that fit the bill. Yeah. So yeah, we have the daily drawing prompts out on the club. So if you want to check that out, if you're looking for daily inspiration, we got that. And here's another Yeti that's decorating. I thought he was peeing in the snow. Is he? No, he's not. He's got Christmas lights.
I mean, he has to pee somewhere.
From a distance, it looks like he's maybe taking a pee. But what happened? Nope, there we go. All right. Yeah, so that's Jared. And Jared's been really crushing these out every day. He's trying to take a little time every day to do all of these. I think he's pretty caught up. The other day was supply chain issues, and it looks like a gremlin driving a supply chain. And look, there's gremlins on a conveyor belt.
That's great.
I know. So that's awesome. Yep.
There's not a ton of line work with those little guys, but they have a lot of personality.
Yeah. And then our friend, JLD, he's doing some crazy stuff here with check this out on Instagram, but he's doing a whole comic series called Bah Humbug, where it's like, I don't know what's going to happen. I'm not going to spoil it, but it's like, they
That's
might know my name,
fantastic.
Yeah, look at this. This is crazy. And they're like, these guys
Oh,
are going to mug him or something. They're like, they don't know who he is. And I guess this takes place after, I don't know. I'm getting a little too far ahead of myself here, but yeah, check out Matthew JLD Rice and check out his comic that's going on. It's all about um, uh, it's called Bah Humbug, and it's just killer. His colors are awesome here, and he's got a lot of action going on. So yeah, check that out. A lot of good stuff coming in from the Draw or Die Club. And let's see, are we going to do the 12 Days of Christmas prompts you mentioned in one of the newsletters? Yes, so that's optional. You can do that. You can do Tom's funny version. You can do the classic version. And I think I did the daily prompt. Like if you're on the daily prompt list, there's some other different ones too that you could do. So it's just like you could definitely draw whatever you'd like from that. I realized I was like, ooh, do I have to draw 12 people or like 8 animals a day or something? That's definitely going to be a challenge. So maybe if you just take the animal that's in there and draw that for the day. But like Tom said, you just have some fun with the prompts that day. So, and if you want to check that out, it's in the Draw or Die Club, drawordie.club archive. You'll be able to see his list in there. So I'm going to try to do it. I also have a lot of other stuff going on, so we'll see. And then figured to wrap it up here, and since I see Magical's still on here, actually, he sent in a scribble. So I thought we'd do a scribble challenge at the end here. So this is the scribble that he sent in. So you guys can, I'm going to take a look at this for a second. Do you guys see anything in particular? I see something, but like I said, it's pretty silly what I see. I'd like to see something cooler. So what do you think, Alicia? Do you see?
I think that's an AI attempt to draw a hand.
What?
I think that's how.
Oh, I see. Okay. Yeah. All right.
I see a
Nothing coming?
face. Like there is this like art style
Yeah.
uh with like really exaggerated features. I can't think of the artist though.
Well, I'm seeing something and I'm just going to draw it out. And it's going to be silly. I don't know if it's going to make any sense. I don't know what's going on at the bottom either, but we're going to try this right now. So the first thing I saw was like sunglasses right here. Or like VR goggles, right? And then like a nose. This is so silly. Gotta bear with me. I'll flesh it out here. And initially I saw like I thought this was the hair. But now that I thought that this was originally sunglasses, but now it looks like VR goggles to me. And this was kind of like a big like afro. This is really terrible. All right. This is not good. Sorry, guys. This one's not good. But yeah, VR goggles. I'll make it work. All right. I don't know what's happening down here though, to be honest. All right, I'm gonna try this again. We're gonna do this again. It's the wonder of I usually don't erase things like that, but you can see that, right? There's some kind of face happening here. The other thing I saw was this, and I'm just gonna go for it. It's a little bird guy. He's kind of smiling. He's very happy about this. Or I don't, It's
I
going to
think
be
it's
a weird,
it's a platypus.
right? You see it, right?
Yeah.
He's holding a big egg. I don't know why. And listen, he's got AI, many hands. Many. All right.
Well, he needs back feet. So he's like,
Right. Definitely some hair there. All right, now we're getting there. We're getting there now. So I don't know if this should be his tail coming off here.
yeah, he's a platypus. You gotta do some like cross hatching in there.
And then this is like, you know what? He's in one of those inner tubes. So that doesn't make sense now, but that's underwater. So I'm just gonna like that. It's fun, right? Put the little inflatable thing there. I don't have any reference for a platypus right now, but this is a weird AI platypus. Let's just say, and platypus usually have longer. He's a special
Is
little
it?
guy. Right.
If there were two, would they be platypi?
I don't know. I'll have to ask the Flowbots. They would know. They know all about platypuses. Their album, Platypus. Right. Look at that. I think it has to have spots on it. That's really silly, but that's the charm of it. There you go. It's a platypus adrift. His little life preserver boat. What do you think, Alicia? Is it Handmade Arcade worthy? Am I going to get in next year?
I mean, it's weird enough.
All
so
right.
maybe.
All right. Well, that's going to about do it. We're at an hour. That's when I put the seal on this because we got other things to do. We got other things to draw here tonight. Make sure that you're subscribed to the channel, please, and help us grow and find more artists out there. It's definitely growing a good bit. And Draw or Die Club is at drawordie.club, drawordie.co. We got some cool merch and stuff there. And we also have another video coming out on Friday night. I think it's set for, well, it's Friday during the day, someday tomorrow. I'm not sure what time, 3 o'clock, something like that. That's going to be kind of cool, showing you how to get into a digital art setup for like under $399. So kind of a cool little video for there. So we have 3 videos coming out a week now. Got the Wednesday warm up yesterday, got the podcast on Thursday nights, and then we have a Friday night video too that's kind of like pre-recorded to help you out. So be sure you're checking that stuff out. Hopefully it's helping you stay encouraged out there. And thanks for listening in. Thank you, Alicia. You're supposed to say goodbye. Yeah, bye.
Bye.
Right on. Thanks, everybody.